On today's episode of Locked On Angels, Johnny, I think the Angels need some help on the start menu. They seem to go all the way down to expert mode instead of playing some games on easy mode, right? They made it really hard on themselves yesterday, and we're going to talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels, and we're talking Angels baseball every Monday through Friday, all the way through the season. On today's show, we're looking at how much the Halos have to spend in the draft that's coming up in June. Mike, it's going to be real interesting to see what the Angels do with those 4 top 100 picks, and they got some money to spend. So we're looking forward to that. We'll get into that conversation later. And we're asking ourselves, who are the team leaders on this team? Really? Who are they? Are they anywhere to be found? We're going to talk about that coming up as well. But first, Mike, we need to recap the game against the Pirates. The Angels lose this one 4-1. And boy, it was just not a good look for the Halos in this one, right?
They played it on hard mode, and you tweeted that out, Johnny, because it was a hard game, and it shouldn't have been. Stop me if you've heard this before. Tyler Anderson pitched pretty well, but the offense didn't pick him up. And this is something that I think we have to at least acknowledge, and Wash acknowledged it after the game last night. He said, last few games, the starting pitching has really stepped up and have held their own. They haven't been perfect, obviously, and I wouldn't say they even were great, but they were good and good enough to get wins. And these are the types of games where the Angels should have won. Now, there was a moment, we'll talk about it with Tyler Anderson, but Anderson went 6 1/3. He gave up 6 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, and 5 Ks, 93 pitches thrown. It was a big mistake that he made in the 3rd inning. He walked a batter, gave up a double, walked another batter, and then gave up a grand slam on the first pitch.
Yeah.
Ronnie, why do the Angels make it so difficult on themselves in games like this, especially against a team like the Pirates, who don't really have an offense at all?
It's another situation of Angels not being able to meet the moment, Mike. And we talked about this yesterday when we had our conversation about like Willie Calhoun being in the cleanup spot, because Wash doesn't feel like the young guys are ready to be in that cleanup spot because they can't meet the moment. The moment gets too big for them. The moment gets too large. It gets too much pressure on them. And I think about somebody like Tyler Anderson, who's pitched pretty well so far this season. And obviously the ding against him is this grand slam, but he's a veteran. And there's no reason why you should be throwing your cutter right down the middle in that situation. I understand it's a matter of location. You're not going to throw every pitch perfect, but when the bases are loaded, you got to pitch perfect. You got to make your pitch. You got to do the right thing. And if you don't have a feel for your cutter in that moment, you got to go to the changeup. You got to go to something else in that moment. And that's not what Tyler Anderson did. He served him up a cookie. And of course, they're going to take that cookie for a ride. And it just kind of goes against what the Angels haven't been able to do. And that's put some runs on the board. I know Zach Neto got a home run in this one, dead center, by the way. That was impressive.
Yeah.
But Mike, if I know we're going to talk about this in a second, the Schanuel being sent home and not sliding, costing the Halos a run and running into an out, it's an entirely different ball game if it's 4-2 rather than 4-1.
Yeah.
And maybe Mitch Keller doesn't go 9 innings.
Yeah.
Maybe they get to the bullpen sooner. That was the other thing, is they're letting Mitch Keller just cruise through this game. And Mitch Keller's a good pitcher, but this year he's not been very good.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is they let him cruise through this one. There wasn't very many competitive at bats, not what we're used to seeing, not the ones where they're fouling off some pitches and doing the things that they normally do, getting to guys. I mean, look, they got to Zach Wheeler and made him only go 5 innings. I think just last night for the Phillies, I think he had a really great game. But when they faced Zach Wheeler, who's the ace of the Phillies staff, he only went 5 innings, and so did Patrick Sandoval, is because they were making him work out there. And they just let Mitch Keller cruise in this one.
Well, let me talk about that moment with Schanuel. So he is on base, and then there's a double by Moniak, and Schanuel was sent home, and he doesn't slide.
Yeah.
And a couple of things that happen in that moment. First, of course, EY sent him. Second thing is Taylor Ward is standing off to the side with his bat in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And for those on the audio side, you're not going to get this, so I'll explain as I'm doing it. But he kind of like he was petting a bunny. Barely making a movement with his hand. I think Taylor Ward did his best imitation of Taylor Ward in that moment, right? Like not too much energy, not too much emotion, just kind of like scale of 1 to 10.
It's
5.
It's like how he plays the outfield.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of comparisons with Ward and how he plays the outfield to like GA, right? Like people were like, come on, I want to see some passion and some fire. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But so he doesn't really give direction. Then Schanuel doesn't slide and he gets tagged. And then Ward kind of gives him a shoulder shrug. Like, what are you doing? And then Schanuel kind of looks around, and that really messed up the inning, to be quite honest with you. And you're right. If they get a run there, then things are looking a bit different. Or if it's second and third with the lineup coming up, then perhaps things are looking even better. And that brings up an interesting thought. And it's a thought about Eric Young Jr. or Eric Young Sr. that's over at third base. And he sent him, John, and you had some thoughts about that.
Well, Washington spoke to the media after the game, and he's talking about, not running ourselves into outs and things like that, and being able to read the room and read the situation. And by all accounts, he pinned it on Schanuel.
Yeah.
And Ward, right? And I have appreciated Ron Washington kind of holding these guys accountable in terms of just speaking freely about, mistakes that have been made, like Joe Adell, when he said, you got to get that bag and you got to make sure you get that bag when Joe Adell overran second base on the steal. I've appreciated that kind of stuff. But who's holding Eric Young Sr. responsible for the send? Who's going to be holding him accountable for the decision that he made to send Nolan Schanuel? Because, Mike, in the media interview, Wash said, you gotta read the situation. We have runners on second and third with no outs, and the heart of our order coming up, and Taylor Ward and Willie Calhoun, the heart of the order, Willie Calhoun.
Yeah.
Look, he got a double. I'm not going to bag on him. He's actually been pretty good. But you have Ward, Calhoun, O'Hoppe, Drury coming up in this situation. Nobody out, runners on second and third. And you're going to pin that on Schanuel, who, yes, by all accounts, should have slid. Like, there's no reason for him not to slide. That's something you learn in Little League. This isn't slow pitch softball where we don't want to get our knees scraped up, Mike. Remember?
Yeah.
Did you ever slide? I think I slid a couple of times.
Never did.
I just wanted to slide because I wanted to get dirty.
Yeah.
But doesn't EY Sr. also have to read the situation?
Sure.
Doesn't he also have to read the room?
Sure.
And this is not entirely on the players in this situation. And yes, again, I am thankful that Ron Washington does what he does and calls out the players. But in this situation, I think you got to have a conversation with EY Sr. and say, hey, man, Nolan is not very fast.
Yeah.
No outs. You
Yeah.
got players in second and third. What are you doing there?
Yeah. I think he was doing what he should have done, and that was send Nolan Schanuel, because the Angels have just been so terrible with runners in scoring position and have been so terrible offensively.
I get that.
I think that this more is on Schanuel and Taylor Ward, because Schanuel's coming in, he's being sent, and yeah, he's not fast, he's not fleet of foot, right? But he needs some direction there. And Taylor Ward just kind of, again, pets the rabbit, like, and was being gentle in that moment. He needs to be animated, and he needs to be telling him to move to his left.
Shouldn't be holding his bat either.
Move to his left, because if he slid out, you got to make the catcher reach out for that. The catcher literally got the ball and then just here you go. Like he just handed the ball to Nolan Schanuel. And so that was just a terrible play. And it frustrates me because we heard all spring training about this fundamentally sound team.
Yeah.
It's not just going to be on defense. It's going to be on the bases and it's going to be how they do stuff. And I'm 44 and have never played baseball in my life. And I knew to slide. I knew that you were supposed to slide.
Not that you would, but you knew that you should.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't have slid because I probably would have pulled something, but I knew that you slide there. So when he walks in, I'm like, what? You obviously weren't aware of the situation and you weren't given any sort of direction once you got close. And so for Taylor Ward to shrug his shoulders, that pissed me off.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Help him out. Help a brother out.
But Mike, this is the problem since the beginning of the season. Where is the fundamentally sound baseball that we've all been talking about and doing? And, we're going to be about it and we're going to run down the West and all that stuff. Where is it? Because maybe there was a little bit of it beginning of the season, maybe not. But that was a long time ago.
Right. Feels like it.
But we've been watching every game. I don't see fundamentally sound stuff. I see some good defensive plays and I see somebody like Zach Neto getting better and doing some impressive stuff at shortstop. I see Ohapi throwing out Andrew McCutchen at third and going for that. I love that kind of stuff. But at the same time, how many times are you going to run yourselves into outs?
Yep.
How many times are you going to overrun a base? How many times are you going to steal before the pitch has even been thrown? And I know a lot of that is Joe Adell stuff. But I also go back to the coaching. I mean, the coaching staff, we've said that they're going to elevate this team. They're going to elevate the floor of this team because they're going to get them to play fundamentally sound baseball. And so far, I haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it at all. And you haven't seen it either. You mentioned defense. You haven't seen it on offense either, John. I mean, the epitome of the Angels offense happened in the top of the seventh. Calhoun does get that double that you mentioned. And then here's why they don't score runs. Because Ohapi grounds to the shortstop, fails to move Calhoun over. Then Drury grounds to the shortstop, fails to move him over. And then Adell grounds to the pitcher. Now, if Ohapi grounds to the right side, Calhoun goes to third. If Drury grounds to the shortstop, then Calhoun comes home and scores. And so you have a run on the board, or you hit a sac fly, whatever it might be.
Sure.
But none of these guys are adjusting their swing. It goes back to what you just said and what we talked about yesterday, where they can't read the room and they don't rise to the moment. In the moment, they're like, I'm gonna hit a bomb right here. No, you're not. You haven't. So adjust your swing, go to right field, ground it to second base, move that runner over. That's what good teams do. That's what fundamentally sound good teams do.
Do you think there's a lot of, not to give them an excuse, but do you think that there's a lot of mental undoing that needs to take place from the last couple of years with this coaching staff that they've had?
I honestly, I want to say that, but Zach Neto and Logan Ohapi and Nolan Schanuel are making dumb decisions. So it's not like they've been around for a really long time. I get that they're rookies. I get that they're young. I get all of that stuff. And that's a reality of the situation. However, like it's not like it's few and far between. This is happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's happening all the time, then what are we going to do about it? I don't see any adjustments that this team is making. We always talk about, like last year, we talk about how the pitching staff specifically, like, you're supposed to make these adjustments for these pitchers, help them to see some things. I'm confident still that the coaching staff is doing that. I just don't see the players adjusting at all, no matter the circumstance, no matter the situation. Brandon Drury, you're 2 for 30 something.
Yeah.
Like stop trying to break out of a slump with a home run. Move that runner over. Hey, give me a bunt. And this goes back to coaching. Ron Washington, give me a bunt. Move that runner over because we're struggling to score.
Yeah.
And so we got to do something in those moments.
Yeah. The Angels are sitting at 12 and 23. There's a lot of panic of, is this the worst team ever? Well, they're looking like it right now, being 11 games under 500, but I still contend that they're not a 100 loss team like everybody is freaking out about, because they've been in these games, Mike. They've been in games against the first place Guardians and the first place Phillies. They just can't get out of their own way. And I can't believe that that's going to happen the rest of the season, but I know that it feels like it right now. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen Every single day, the Angels are back at it at PNC Park, 3:40 Pacific time against the Pirates. Patrick Sandoval is on the mound. Mike, let's flip the script. Let's lose game 1.
And win the next 2.
Because so far they've won game 1 and then they lose the next 2. So let's flip the script here. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM or the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, the Angels need a couple of on-the-field leaders. Got any idea of who that could be? Well, Mike's got a couple to share. I've got a couple to share, and we'll talk about that coming right up.
Johnny, we had an everydayer that reached out and said they downloaded the Prize Pick app, which is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. A lot of fun to use. And the way that it works is that you need to pick between 2 and 6 players and then select if they're going to do more than the suggested stat or less than the projected stat. So Mitch Keller was the pitcher for the Pirates last night, and they said that on Prize Picks, the number that they gave was 5.5. So is he gonna pitch more than like 5 innings plus or less than that? So this everydayer said, I picked more, felt bad about it, but then he won because he won a complete game. And so I said, don't feel bad about it at all, even though it was your favorite team, right? But it is Mitch Keller, pretty good pitcher, and they won some money, and so can you with Prize Picks. You should download it right now, and you can select more or less of any category. It could be strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Take your pick and then enter those picks, and you can win some money on Prize Picks. Download the app right now. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Join Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And speaking of fun games, Johnny, Locked On Angels is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. It's been downloaded 150 million times, and you can take this board game and you can play it on your phone, and you can play it in a way that you've never played it before. You can play in crazy locations. You can build amazing cities that bring big money. The best part, you can play with family and you can play with friends. You can charge for those iconic properties, just like in the classic Monopoly. There are some added twists, like you can heist your friend's vault of riches for yourself. That's a lot of fun, by the way. And then there's leaderboards to show who's winning the biggest and who's the Monopoly tycoon. And if you don't want to play against friends, then you can team up and play against people around the world in huge timed tournaments. That's a whole lot of fun. So download Monopoly Go right now. It's free in the App Store and the Google Play Store.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. Everydayers, it's time to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news. It's all the things you want from a good sports streaming channel 24/7. It's on YouTube 24/7. It's also on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And speaking of your team every day, the Angels are back at it against those Buccos, the Buccaneers, the Pirates at 3:40 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
John, I want to take you back to Nolan Schanuel's non-slide.
Do you have to? Do we have to go back there?
We have to go back. We got to relive it for just a moment because, and I mentioned it in the first segment, but I really think a lot of the blame needs to go on Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward is the veteran in this lineup right now. With Trout out and Rendon out, right? He's been around the longest.
Haven't thought of it that way, but I think you're right.
He's been around the longest. He's the guy that they need to count on. He's the bat that has to come through. But quite honestly, he just hasn't done much since Trout's been out. And I get that they might be pitching him differently because he has no protection. But the reality is Rendon and Trout were hitting in front of him, not behind him, right? One of the things I've noticed about Ward is that even last night, as Mitch Keller was pitching against him, he had a couple of fastballs that were to the left of the zone, where if you go with that pitch, you can hit it to right. But every single time Ward was pulling off, Ward's opening up big time. He fouled it off, luckily, but he's opening up his side way too fast. So there's some mechanical issues with him, but we need a leader on this team on the field. We need somebody that is going to be the emphatic leader. We needed him to get wild and crazy and animated in that moment, not just give me a little bit of a, I'm flying away like a little birdie.
The bunny pat.
Oh my gosh, so irritating. So I think we need a leader, John. So before we talk about a leader, I think that there are some things that we need to qualify as being a leader on the field. First thing is that they need to perform on the field, offensively and defensively. They need to have a commitment to hustle and energy and passion and those moments where they're bought in. I remember Mike Trout when he was given the signal, man, that guy was flapping his wings trying to get whoever was coming in to slide in. I think they need to be vocal. Now, forget this like I'm a quiet leader nonsense. This team has had too many quiet leaders for far too long, and we know how that's worked out. And so, Johnny, who's the guy or who's the guys that could be the leaders of this team?
Well, I think two guys that come to mind, Mike, are Zach Neto and Logan O'Hoppe. They have both made it very clear that they want to see this team succeed, and they know a lot of that success hinges on what they do on the field, especially O'Hoppe behind the plate, taking responsibility for some of the bad pitches that Jose Soriano made in a relief outing that cost the Angels a game. O'Hoppe wore that, and I appreciated that. These are also the guys who stood by and watched the Twins celebrate their making the playoffs last season in the Central. I know the Central was not very good last year. It's a lot better this year, a whole lot more competitive. But these are the guys who stood back, sat in the dugout, and wore the loss. And so to me, they're young, but they are earning their place in terms of being those vocal guys. Now, if you just listen to them talk, both these guys are pretty quiet. Both these guys are pretty reserved, I think, when they speak. But when you get out there on the field, you got to turn it on. And when you're in that dugout, you got to turn it on. So I see Zach Neto and Logan O'Hoppe being those guys. Who do you suggest that it might be?
Well, I would go with those two guys initially. I think a lot of people would go with those two guys. But let me throw a wild card at you. I think that he's got the energy and passion. He just needs to perform. And that's Patrick Sandoval. He's somebody that I think his fire is something that this team needs. They need somebody that's going to be the CM Punk of the Angels, that's going to come in and is going to make it. You just don't like him because he left your stupid AEW, WCW show. He needs to come in and rile things up, but then he needs to back it up with action on the mound, with his performance on the mound. And that's the problem with this team is there's a whole lot of talk and no action, especially from Sandoval. I want to lead these guys. I'm going to be the opening day starter. I'm going to be the ace of the staff. And I'm 1-6 or whatever his record is right now. Right? Like it's not good. And I know he's improving, but there's something about him from the energy perspective, from the passion perspective that I think would start a fire in the hearts of the boys if he was performing on the mound. And that's the difference, is that there's a lot of these guys who I think have the potential. There's just not the performance that's behind them.
Yeah, I get that. Well, and the performance will come, and maybe in this scenario, not everybody's going to perform like Mike Trout or whatever. But I will say this. I got one more for you.
Okay.
I think Joe Adell is a great option.
Okay.
Because he has been vocal in the past. I understand that this is kind of the first year he's getting a real, true shot at being in the majors, performing at the major league level, and they're letting him sink or swim. And I know he struggled in the last few games, but there was a good run there where he was kind of carrying this offense, batting over 300 and stealing bags and things like that. He's still stealing bags when he gets on. But Mike, the reason I point back to Adell is because I think about a couple of times where I've seen him in the corner outfield and he makes a diving catch and he gets up and he's pounding his chest or he's fist pumping because he's so fired up that he made the play. That's the energy I want to see. That's the energy that these guys can bring to the table. And that's the energy that AEW fans bring to good matches. And they don't just get hyped up whenever Randy Orton makes his entrance like WWE fans. So don't you knock on my AEW, Michael.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by DoorDash. Remember, Sunday, Mother's Day. Don't forget it. And let DoorDash help you to be thoughtful. Maybe you can surprise your mom from wherever you're at with bouquet of flowers, or if she's a tech person, maybe you can get her a new phone. You're probably gonna have to set it up for her, but you could probably get that for her, or maybe an iPad where she could take the mom iPad photos. When you hold it up and it's like right in your face, right? That's Mama Fresh's best gift. There's self-care treats, all sorts of things on DoorDash. No matter what mom's into, you can make her smile on Mother's Day with the help of DoorDash. Get all of your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend 15 plus on whatever it is that you purchase now at DoorDash. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB so they know that you came from here, and then you can get that discount. Again, download DoorDash, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, order using DoorDash today.
Mike, let's move on to some more hopeful things that are coming down the pipeline for the Angels. This June, the Halos have 4 draft picks in the top 100.
Yep.
And you might say, well, one of those is letting Shohei Ohtani walk, and that's the compensatory pick. And yeah, it is. Right. But it's still a 4th pick. It's still better than 3 and better than 2. Mike, here's the good news. And we'll try to break this down for everydayers who, might not follow the draft or understand the whole process, but we'll break it down for you. The Angels have $12,990,400 to spend with their first 4 draft picks. So just about $13 million. Now, each draft pick has what is called a slot value. So essentially, how much money is that draft pick worth at the slot value that they come at? So the slot value for the draft, they're determined each year by matching the growth in revenue in baseball. Yes, baseball actually makes money, ladies and gentlemen.
The owners make money. Artie makes money.
Yeah. Now, in comparison, the 2023 draft had a first overall pick with a slot value of, get this, $9.7 million. This year, the number 1 pick in the draft has a slot value of $10.6 million. So that's an increase of 8.7%. Now, the Angels can allocate their money however they want, but here are the estimated slot values for each pick that the Angels have in the top 100. Pick number 8 is going to be their highest pick. That's going to come in at about $6.5 million. Pick 45, around $2 million. Pick 74 is going to be about $1,060,000. And pick 81 is just under $1 million at $948,000. Mike, the significance of these slot values is this. When you are a stud coming out of high school, right? Everybody's looking at you. Everybody's thinking you're going to go in the first round. What's it going to take for a team to convince a young person who's 18 years old, coming out of high school with a lot of potential, to sign with their team? Yes, they get drafted, but these guys don't always sign with a team. Sometimes they want to do their 4 years of college. How do you incentivize that? By giving them $6.5 million to come play for you at the age of 18 years old. And so that's why these slot values are significant. That's why they're important. And that's why it's such a good thing that the Angels have $13 million to allocate to those first 4 picks. Now, Mike, pick number 8, pick 45, 74, and 81. You did some good research here, my friend, in terms of who has been selected as the 8th pick, the 45th, and around the later picks that the Angels have. Why don't you read off some of those names for us?
Yeah, pick number 8 in 2019 was Josh Young of the Texas Rangers.
Ooh, can we get ourselves a Josh Young, a third baseman?
Josh Young, right?
Come on.
In 2016, it was Cal Quantrill, who was selected by the Padres, then played for the Guardians. Now he's with the Rockies. 2015, familiar name, Carson Fulmer, drafted by the White Sox. now with the Halos. 2014, Kyle Freeland, who was drafted by the Rockies. Hunter Dozier in 2013, drafted by the Royals, now in AAA for the Angels. And then 2011, Francisco Lindor, drafted by the Guardians.
Give me a Lindor. Come on.
I'll take somebody like that, right? So at pick 45, here's some that have been picked at 45 or around 45 that you may know. 2011, Trevor Story was pick 45.
Come on.
2015, Austin Riley was pick 41.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine an Austin Riley type? Again, another third baseman. I mean, I know the Braves are struggling offensively right now, and Austin Riley is part of that. I know that personally because he was like my third pick in fantasy, and he's struggling.
2016, Nick Lodolo from the Reds was pick 41. So those are some of the names that were picked around there. And then to go all the way down to like 74 and 81, kind of around there. In 2016, Sean Murphy was pick 83.
Wow.
12, Alex Wood was pick 85. Now, scouts are saying that the Halos can get 4 quality players with the $12 million that they have to spend, but they just need to be able to scout in a really tangible way, because Cole Tucker, who's currently on the Angels, was a number 1 draft pick, and he hasn't really panned out. He's been fun to watch, but he's a great backup, right? And not somebody that you would count on. So you have to scout well, but scouts are saying that the Angels could get 4 really good players.
Okay, 2 things I want to say, and one of them is a question for you, but I'll start with this. I do not want a Nolan Schanuel or a Zach Neto or a Chase Silseth where a guy gets picked and then is immediately in the majors. This is the year where all 4 of these draft picks need to spend time in the minor leagues. I know that our player development is not the best, but there has been improvements in terms of adding coaches. Barry Enright wants to see pitching labs and hitting labs developed, which I know those will come in a couple of years after the renovations. But Mike, I do not want to see a rushed up prospect, not because I have a problem with Neto or a problem with Schanuel, but they came up because they were needed, because the Angels wanted to contend. And I want to see 4 really quality players be drafted, maybe even take a high school pitcher, Mike, a starting pitcher out of high school who's got electric stuff, and you want to develop that, because I want to see somebody like a Caden Dana. I want to see another Caden Dana get drafted. The second part of this is a question for you.
Okay.
Do you trust Perry with these 4 draft picks, and do you trust him to do that, or do you think he's going to rush up the next prospect?
I don't think he's going to rush him up, because there's no reason to do that, because your team's not great. You don't have to get somebody to the playoffs, right? So far, Perry's draft has been better than it hasn't been. Mm-hmm. And that's because of a Neto and a Schanuel and some of those guys that are up. So I trust that they are going to get good quality players, the Caden Danas of the world, and then they're going to let them develop. That's the best move, because I can't in any world say why they would bring these guys up to play right now. There would be no reason to have them play right now, because they're going to be lost. They're going to be confused. If Jackson Holiday can't figure it out his first time up, then the guys that you draft are not going to figure it out, right? And maybe perhaps not. Neto and Schanuel are going to be fantastic next year and the year after, because they've had this experience. But I would rather have them work really hard in the minors. And we'll talk about Caden Dana this week. He's doing great. I would love to see that happen. And I do more trust Perry than I don't trust Perry, because he does have a more successful draft record and resume than an unsuccessful one.
He's been a scout in the past as well. And so I think he's got the experience, and I think that he trusts his guys. It's just a matter of picking the right guys and using those 4 top 100 picks, using them wisely and spending the money wisely as well.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Pirates again, 3:40 today. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening to today's show, come on over to YouTube, find today's episode, get in the comment section, and on your way down there, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. We're seeing our subscribers climb up, so we'll keep reminding those who haven't subscribed yet, get in on the fun. Have some fun with us every single day as we talk Angels baseball. We're trying to get you through this season. So, the best way you can give back to the Halo Bros is to hit that subscribe button. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Wash said that there's one thing that Mickey Moniak needs to do, and he will be successful. So what's that one thing? Well, we'll tell you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. In the meantime, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Yeah, that's about it.